There
You
we
will
go.
for sure. You will for sure. The prednisone will help.
Oh, it has helped already since
Oh, it does.
yesterday. So
Yes.
thanks, you guys. Miki Kersgard, this mic is all yours.
Well, thank you, my dear. Yeah, the persistent it is, the ego is incredibly persistent, and it's a daily reminder of everything we need to think about. But before I get going on my story, let's let's settle in. So glad you're all here with me. It really, you have no idea how much it helps me to have other people here in the room with me. So welcome Karen and Sally and Dove and Sora and Linda and Sharon and Bob and Lynn again. Lynn's on here twice so she can manage everything and help us with all of our technical stuff. So I want to send out a thank you of appreciation to Lynn for everything that she does. Um, so, since we have not said how truly helpful we want to be today, um, I'm going to start us out with that prayer. And I'm developing such a new appreciation for this, and who the I is at the beginning of each line. Um, and the I is not, it's not Mickey. It's all of us. It's the one mind. But we'll just all concentrate on who the I is in this, and hopefully we're all included in that. I am here only to be truly helpful, no matter what is going on, no matter what the appearances are. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing that he goes there with me, and I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. And that's a big amen for all of us. It's been a week. It's been a week. When last we spoke, I had just come back from seeing the Walk for Peace monks, and I was, oh boy, Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell is my phone's text alert. Maybe I can turn this down so we don't get interrupted by it. Maybe I can't. I don't know. Anyway, as it happens more often than not, when I have a profound experience of love in whatever form, I swing right back around, and either mentally, physically, or emotionally, I take a dive. And it happened again. Who knows what the hell's going on? There was absolutely no topic. There wasn't an event. It just, I think, I think I just get, um, how do I want to say this? Something comes in. I have a profound experience of oneness and spirit, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like, I don't know if anybody else in the 70s did some recreational drugs like I did, but you get really high and then you experience a crash, and it's kind of like that. And um, so I was just dealing with, some mental and emotional disturbance, I guess you would call it. And I tuned into, somebody sent me a link to one of Keith Kavanaugh's talks. It wasn't the one from this past Sunday. Um, and he said something that really struck me. It said, suffering is a grace. Suffering is a grace. That, I was like, what? And he went on to say, no one would look to awaken without it. And I thought about that. If I had stayed on that high that I felt, that high of oneness, when I had that experience seeing the monks, I wouldn't I wouldn't try to look any further. It was so beautiful and it was so profound that I would have stayed there, given the choice. I would have stayed right there, and I know I wasn't as far as I could go. And it talks about that. I'm going to read a paragraph from the Manual for Teachers. Where'd it go? There it is. It was like it was talking to me. Which paragraph is it? I wrote it down. Now I can't find it. Oh yeah, I know which one it is. I don't even have to look this up. It's paragraph 6 in the development of trust. And this is talking about the 4th stage in the development of trust. Now comes the period of settling down. And I would have settled down right there in that experience I was having. This is a quiet time in which the teacher of God rests a while in reasonable peace. And every time we have that pleasant experience of, oh, yes, I'm feeling it now, we want to settle down in that and plop right down in our little lotus position and stay there. This is a quiet time in which the teacher of God rests a while in reasonable peace. Now he consolidates his learning. Now he begins to see the transfer value of what he has learned. Its potential is literally staggering. And the teacher of God is now at the point in his progress at which he sees in it his whole way out. Give up what you do not want and keep what you do. How simple is the obvious, and how easy to do. The teacher of God needs this period of respite. He has not yet come as far as he thinks. And we all think when we have these experiences, be they for a minute or an hour or a day or weeks or months or even years, we're like, oh yeah, I'm there. I'm there right now. I felt like that. I felt I'm there. I reached it. This is within my grasp. He has not yet come as far as he thinks. Yet when he is ready to go on, he goes with mighty companions beside him, which you all are. Now he rests a while and gathers them before going on. He will not go on from here alone. if I did not go back into that suffering this week, and I wouldn't call it suffering, I would just call it the blahs, really. But after that high, the blahs felt really bad. Suffering is a grace. No one would look to awakening without it. I would have stopped right there. And then, oh, good grief. Just like Dove was talking about this morning, he had an experience early today where he got really angry. And I had an experience when I was feeling a little blah-ish where I got livid with someone. And, I'm looking at it. And in that same talk, Keith was talking about, can I find the one to whom this, and I'll put in anger, there's a blank there that we could fill in any kind of anger, depressed, worried, even happy. Can I find the one to whom this happiness belongs? And the ego wants to yell out, yeah, right here. Here it is. That's the question that a lot of non-dual teachers ask. Can you find the one to whom that is happening? And it wasn't working for me. That was it. I could not get to that non-dual place with that question. And so Spirit gave me another way to look at that. Spirit gave me this image of if you can see Miki getting angry, who are you that is doing the watching? Who's observing Miki getting angry? And I was like, oh, okay, there it is. There's my question. Spirit's always going to give us a way around the situation. If this isn't working for you, here's another one. So if that isn't working for anybody, that typical non-dual, to whom is that thought occurring? If you can always go, it's me, then try this other one. Who's the one who's being the observer? And the observer is not higher holy Miki. The observer cannot be the spiritualized ego. Spiritualized ego does not want to be doing the looking. It has to be someone else. And it is that I that I was talking about in the beginning, doing that prayer. It's not this I. This I can't see anything. This I can't be an observer of what this I is doing. It can't work that way. This body's eyes can't see this body. I can look at it on the screen and see it. I can look in a mirror and maybe see it. But this body's eyes can't see. It's only the higher self, the one mind, that can really see everything that's going on. And there was something I wanted to read about that. And funny enough, Lynn Johnson, you're my mind reader, because Lynn, in the morning session, read this exact thing that I was going to read. Where is it? It's in lesson 35. Where's my little bookmark? I lost it. There it is. It's paragraph 2 in lesson 35. Hi, McKaylee. So happy to see you, honey. It's been a while. Anyway, lesson 35, paragraph 2. Lenny, thank you, Sora. Bye. Talks about what I was just talking about. You will believe that you are part of where you think you are. I'm going to go through this really slowly because we skip by. You will believe that you are part of where you think you are. I think I am part of this whole bit, that I have some contribution to the truth. There's another thing that I love to talk. I can't even remember where that's from, but I love that. You think you are contributing to the truth. You believe that you are part of where you think you are. That is because you surround yourself with the environment you want. And you want it to protect the image of yourself that you have made. I've created everything that I think is here. And I'm doing it on purpose. And every time I think I don't like what's going on, I've got to look at what my responsibility is in what's going on and what I've created. And I want it to protect the image. You want it to protect the image of yourself that you have made. Every minute, I am recreating the entire universe and making it to be what is going to show me what I need to see. And I'm constructing all of this. Ego is constructing ego over and over and over again so that we can see what we think we want to see. You want to protect the image of yourself that you have made. The image is part of this environment. What you see while you believe you are in it is seen through the eyes of the image. What I see is what Miki thinks she wants to see. What you see while you believe you are part, while I believe that I'm Miki, is what I believe I am in. So it's this constant circle. And Regina Dawn Akers used to talk about this. What you think you see, what you see, I can't remember the exact way that she worded it. What you think you see, what you see, you experience. And it's this loop that goes around and around and around. And it's saying the exact same thing here. I want to project the image of myself that I've made. That image is part of this environment, and what you see while you believe you are in it is seen through the eyes of the image, and the image, the eyes of the image projects the image. So it's over and over. This is not vision. Images cannot see. So vision has nothing to do with what these eyes are seeing. Vision is of the spirit, and that observer is the spirit that's observing what's going on. So can you find the one to whom this anger belongs? Can you, spirit, find the one to whom this anger belongs? No. The answer is always no. Because it's an image, it doesn't exist. It's made up. Who is looking at the one who is angry? Who is looking at the worried one? Who's looking at the happy one? It's all the same spirit, no matter what is going on. We can't see through these eyes. We can't see that. We can't observe this through these eyes. Sharon put up a heart. Thank you, sweetie. You, Sharon, you guys got to go back and listen to what Sharon said this morning. Sharon was so profound this morning.
I don't know how you could say that, but okay.
You need to go, you know what? And people have said this to me. You need to go back and listen to what you said this morning. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because there were some real visionary truths coming out of your mouth this morning. So
Thank
not
you.
only the rest of us, but Sharon needs to go back and listen to Sharon.
I'm going to listen to you now.
It was awesome. It was awesome. So, you know, I think I've decided that I was going back through the questions the last few months. I was doing the questions that are in part 2 of the workbook, and I've decided that if I don't want to blab on for a whole hour about what's going on with me, well, I went on for half an hour. I could go and the course, whatever I read in the course, is always applicable to whatever's going on with me, and whatever's going on with me is going on with all of us, because it's all the same ego thought system, and it is all the same right mind. So everything is for all of us. I wanted to, I figured, and Prudence has been so great in playing the portion of the text every morning for us that goes with the calendar year. So by the end, if you're listening to the end of her sessions, you'll have read the whole course just by listening to that. But I thought maybe I would pick out one section each week that kind of hit me really profoundly and connected with what I've been thinking about, and go over that. So this week, my greatest hit of the week we're in chapter 4, and it's section 2, ego and false autonomy. And I know I've read it before because there are all sorts of underlines and stars and notes and all sorts of stuff, but I was like, wow. And Ken talks about this all the time in his lectures. He's like, depending on where you are in your development, different things pop out at you. And you can find a section that you swore you've read before, but it's coming from a whole other direction and you think you never read it before. And that happened with this one for me. And I know I've read it because I took notes in it, but I was like, wow, when I heard it on Gather Radio, I was like, what is this section? And how have I never seen this before? And I go to my book and I open it up and there's stars and there's underlines and there's notes. And I'm like, well, clearly I have read this before. But while I was listening to the recording of it, I could have sworn Karen's laughing. She knows what I'm talking about. We do this all the time. Okay, so this one really really hit me. So, ego and false autonomy. It is reasonable to ask how the mind could ever have made the ego. And we all want to ask that question, don't we? In fact, it is the best question you could ask. There is, however, no point in giving an answer in terms of the past, because the past does not matter and history would not exist if the same errors were not being repeated in the present. It's like, why? Why am I going through this again? Choose again, lessons. What is it? Challenges, triggers. Karen would know the word exactly.
Trials are but lessons.
What is it?
Trials are but lessons.
Trials. Challenge. I'm like, challenges, trials, triggers, whatever it is. Trials are but lessons that we have not learned, presented once again, so that we could change our minds and look at them differently. So there is, however, no point in giving an answer in terms of the past, because the past does not matter and history would not exist if the same errors were not being repeated in the present. And somebody, one of my neighbors, I ran into one of my neighbors this week, and he wanted to talk about what was going on in our country and politics and all of that. And this whole concept came into my mind. History would not exist. I said to him, we've been doing this for millennia. I said, look at the Roman Empire. Look at, they endured Caligula. And look at Italy now. We love Italy. For us, it's just wine and pasta now. We think it's a great place to go visit. Look at Germany. Look what Germany endured. And what we all endured because of it. And we think Germany's a very progressive country now. We tolerate Nazism in this country more than they do. It's like it just gets repeated. We've been going through this for millennia. We will be fine. We will be fine. Let's not worry about it. We're just getting to choose again. Abstract thought applies to knowledge because knowledge is completely impersonal, and examples are irrelevant to its understanding. We can't get specific. We can't go, oh, poor me. Knowledge is impersonal. Perception, however, is always specific and therefore quite concrete. Everyone makes an ego or a self for himself, which is subject to enormous variation because of its instability. He also makes an ego for everyone else he perceives. which is equally variable. And we're making an ego for everyone. Our perception forms our ego as well as everyone else's ego. And they're all different. I've talked about this before. The way one person sees me is completely different from the way another person sees me. The way I see someone is completely different from the way another one sees one. I can't remember which politician it was. I think it was our state senator. And I read an interview, and this was a guy that I reviled. This is about 10 years ago. And I thought, he is just one of the most horrible people. And the interview was with his granddaughter. And she talked about what a wonderful granddad he was, and what a great person, and how kind he was, and how thoughtful. And I couldn't believe it. But now that I look back on it, I see my perception made him who he was in my eyes. Her perception made him who he was in her eyes. And that's exactly what this is talking about. He also makes an ego for everyone else he perceives, which is equally variable. Their interaction is a process that alters both, because they were not made by or with the unalterable. It is important to realize that this altercation, what a slip. It is important to realize that this alteration can and does occur as readily when the interaction takes place in the mind as when it involves physical proximity. Thinking about another ego is as effective in changing relative perception as is physical interaction. There could be no better example that the ego is only an idea and not a fact. And so everything that I perceive through this body's mind and eyes are examples of perception, and how much it can alter everything that's being seen. Your own state of mind is a good example of how the ego was made. When you threw knowledge away, it is as if you never had it. When you throw oneness away, when you throw that knowledge of the spirit away, it's as if you never had it. And that's what happened this week. When I took a dive, I threw knowledge away. This is so apparent that one need only recognize it to see that it does happen. If this occurs in the present, why is it surprising that it occurred in the past? Surprise is a reasonable response to the unfamiliar, though hardly to something that occurs with such persistence. But do not forget that the mind need not work that way, even though it does work that way now. This need not be. Karen's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Excuse me. Thank you, Miki. Yeah, I love this sharing about, our perception. And it always reminds me of the early lessons, but lesson 24 and lesson 25 in particular. Lesson 24, I do not perceive my own best interests. And in that paragraph, in the very first paragraph, sentence 3, he says, what you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. And I notice for myself, when I think I know my own best interest, and I go for this I believe that this particular thing is going to be the best thing for me. So I go in that direction. But I can't achieve it because it's not really for my own best interest, but I want it to be. So I'm trying to make it happen. I'm not going to give an example of what's happening. I'm just going to make it like general. And so I don't perceive my own best interest. If I'm not at peace, then it's not for my own best interest. If it's not happening naturally and it's not coming from the spirit and I'm thinking I have to do anything, then it is not in my own best interest. So I really love this where he just reminds us that, you don't know because your perception is always wrong. So I really appreciate being reminded. Thanks.
Thank you. And isn't it wonderful how well if you do this, and I know I've done this before and I know I've noticed it, but it's hitting me more profoundly now that Prudence is playing these side by side, the lesson of the day and the section that if you read a section a day, how well they go together. And it's just like, so this is ego and false autonomy is falling right in this week where we're looking at seeing and vision and perception so closely in the lessons. And it's just been such a gift to look at this again and be able to see how much it all goes together. And Lynn wrote in the chat, why ask why I did it? I'm doing it now. Yeah, why ask why the ego was created? We're creating it now. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. It's ridiculous. It's absurd, but it's gorgeous to look at it and know what's really going on. So we're at paragraph 4. Think of the love of animals for their offspring and the need they feel to protect them. That is because they regard them as part of themselves. No one dismisses something he considers part of himself. So if we're thinking the ego is part of ourselves, we can't dismiss it. We protect it. You react to your ego much as God does to his creations, with love, protection, and charity. Your reactions to the self you made are not surprising. And the ego made the ego. Your reactions to the self you made are not surprising. In fact, they resemble in many ways how you will one day react to your real creations. I can't wait to see that one. Which are as timeless as you are. The question is not how you respond to the ego, but what you believe you are. Let me read that one again, because that's important. The question is not how you respond to the ego, but what you believe you are. And we've been studying in the sessions before this one for the past 18 weeks or so what you believe you are. We've been repeating over and over again, I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. But then we keep thinking we're this. We keep thinking we're this personality. The question is not how you respond to the ego, but what you believe you are. If you believe you're an ego, you're going to respond to the ego. If you believe you're spirit, you're going to respond with the knowledge of spirit. Belief is an ego function. And as long as your origin is open to belief, you are regarding it from an ego viewpoint. When we believe, we question. Bob wrote in the chat, quack. If you think you're a duck, you're gonna quack. And Karen wrote, what you think you are is a belief to be undone. And that's from lesson 91. Knowledge is of spirit. Belief is of the ego. When teaching is no longer necessary, you will merely know God. Belief that there is another way of perceiving is the loftiest idea of which ego thinking is capable. Important. Belief, and we know belief is of the ego. Belief that there is another way of perceiving. So thank God the ego, thank God what we're studying, while we have not been taken up into the heart of God, while we still think we're in a body, while we still slip and have little crashes like I had, I'm still in belief. But I know there's another way. I know. I don't believe. I know there is another way. Belief that there is another way of perceiving is the loftiest idea of which ego thinking is capable. That is because it contains a hint of recognition that the ego is not the capital S self. Are we doing on time? I think we're good. I think we'll be able to finish this. Undermining the ego's thought system must be perceived as painful. Undermining the ego's thought system must be perceived as painful, even though this is anything but true. The fact that the word perceived was used there instead of known tells us that this is not necessarily true. Undermining the ego's thought system must be perceived as painful, not known, even though this is anything but true. Babies scream in rage if you take away a knife or scissors, although they may well harm themselves if you do not. In this sense, you are still a baby. So don't take away this identity, although, God, please. But I'm still hanging on to it. There's still a part of me that thinks it's Miki. In this case, you are still a baby. You have no sense of real self-preservation and are likely to decide that you need precisely what would hurt you most. If I had stayed in that blissful state after I saw the monks, that's what I wanted. That's absolutely what I wanted. You have no sense of real self-preservation and are likely to decide that you need precisely what would hurt you most. I would have stopped right there. I would not look to further awakening. I would have been a bliss bunny. Yet whether or not you recognize it now, you have agreed to cooperate in the effort to become both harmless and helpful. Attributes that must go together. Your attitudes, even towards this, are necessarily conflicted because all attitudes are ego-based. love is not an attitude. Love is a knowing. This will not last. Thank goodness. Be patient a while. And remember that this is the one that grabbed me. This is why I said, okay, that's the section I'm going to read when I heard it on Gather Radio that morning. This will not last. Be patient a while and remember the outcome is as certain as God. Only those who have a real and lasting sense of abundance can be truly charitable. Only those who have a real and lasting sense of abundance can be truly helpful, can represent that he who sent them, do not have to worry about what to say or do, are content to be wherever they want to be and can heal and be healed. Only those who have a real and lasting sense of abundance can be truly charitable. This is obvious when you consider what is involved. To the ego, to give anything implies that you will have to do without it. When you associate giving with sacrifice, you give only because you believe that you are somehow getting something better and can therefore do without the thing you give. Giving to get is an inescapable law of the ego, which always evaluates itself in relation to other egos. It is therefore continually preoccupied with the belief in scarcity that gave rise to it, that gave rise to the ego, that gave rise to conflict and chaos. It's that belief in scarcity, the belief that I'm missing out on something, that belief that I want autonomy, that I want a separate personality, that I want a separate anything. It is preoccupied with the belief in scarcity that gave rise to it. Its whole perception of other egos as real is only an attempt to convince itself that it is real. Self-esteem, in ego terms, means nothing more than that the ego has deluded itself into accepting its reality and is therefore temporarily less predatory, less looking for that autonomy, less looking to be separate, better than, less than. This self-esteem is always vulnerable to stress, a term which refers to any perceived threat to the ego's existence. The ego literally lives by comparisons. Equality is beyond its grasp, and charity, or love, becomes impossible. The ego never gives out of abundance because it was made as a substitute for it. That is why the concept of getting arose in the ego's thought system. Appetites are getting mechanisms. So, since we only have about 5 more minutes, I'm going to skip a few paragraphs because we're all talking about, next couple of paragraphs are talking about how much the ego wants all of this and what it's doing to save itself. And I'm going to go to paragraph 10, which says, salvation is nothing more than right-mindedness, which is not the one-mindedness of the Holy Spirit, but which must be achieved before one-mindedness is restored. Right-mindedness leads to the next step automatically, because right perception is uniformly without attack, and therefore wrong-mindedness is obliterated. The ego cannot survive without judgment and is laid aside accordingly. The mind then has only one direction in which it can move. Its direction is always automatic because it cannot but be dictated by the thought system to which it adheres. So if we're adhering to the thought system of the ego, we're going to adhere to that. If we're believing in the thought system of the Holy Spirit, we're going to adhere to that. It cannot be emphasized too often that correcting perception is merely a temporary expedient. It is necessary only because misperception is a block to knowledge, while accurate perception is a stepping stone toward it. The whole value of right perception lies in the inevitable realization that all perception is unnecessary. This removes the block entirely. You may ask how this is possible as long as you appear to be living in this world. And I ask that all the time. I'm like, how am I going to get rid of perception as long as I'm living here? That is a reasonable question. You must be careful, however, that you really understand it. And here we get to that thing that I first started talking about. Who is the you who are living in this world? Spirit is immortal, and immortality is a constant state. It is as true now as it ever was or ever will be, because it implies no change at all. And Raffi made a comment about that earlier too. If anything can change, it is not part of immortality or spirit. It is not a continuum, nor is it understood by being compared to an opposite. Knowledge never involves comparisons. That is its main difference from everything else the mind can grasp. What a great section. I'm sorry I had to leave out a couple of paragraphs, but everybody's free to go read this today. It's a doozy, and it's been great hanging out with you guys and looking at this again. And Karen wrote, the you living in this world is the decision-making mind. Oh, Ken wrote that. Good one. All right. It's been a blast. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mickey. This has been awesome. I love that section. That's one of my favorites because it
It's a
really,
good one.
really puts it right out there. And yes, you will still, as long as you're living in this world, you'll have perception. So you're not going to be bumping into chairs and tables when you're, because you're not really even here. But it's not like, we're trying to give up perception. What we're trying to do is look at our interpretation of what we perceive and what it means to us. So if I'm perceiving something that I think is wonderful, then, you know, that's fine. If I'm perceiving something I think is terrible, it's fine. It's because it's all about what that world that I'm projecting that the lesson today or yesterday talked about. I'm surrounding myself with what I want to see. And, if you look at, I'll put on my camera for just a second. Rev Wayne's not here yet, I don't think. So, look around me. What is Lynn's world? What is the world that Lynn, in front of her are mighty companions, around her are saints and goddesses. It is a absolute farce. It's a made up picture of what I think I am. People are doing this. Oh, there's Wayne. People are doing this thing with Chat GPT, where they're putting in, like, I don't know, Lisa Natoli did it, a few other people, do a graphic of who I am and what I am all about, what I'm about. And so, there's Lisa sitting there all beautiful and meditating, and all the lovely things around her. It's like an AI picture. And my nephew Chris did his. That's the first one I saw. And it's got him. He works with the Lions Club International and goes and does projects all over the world with people in developing countries. And so, here he is, working with some guy putting up a wall and doing stuff. And so, yeah. So I said, oh, well, let me see what Chat GPT knows about me. So I went and asked the question, and it said, well, before I can do this, I'm going to need some information about you. And I said, oh, this knows nothing about me. It
If
wants
you
to
haven't
know.
interacted with it, that's what I was thinking, like it, because I have never interacted with AI.
Yeah.
I think once I asked it to compare when I was getting all those cataract surgeries.
Uh-huh.
I asked it to compare all the different lenses that they could use and give me it. So that's all it knows about me.
So the picture it would make of you would be
An eyeball.
an eye problems. It just cracked me up. I'm like, that's what I told Lisa. I said, it doesn't know anything about me. And she said, oh, I've been interacting with this for over, so long, and I pay $20 a month for it. I'm like, well, no wonder,
Yeah,
it knows everything about you now, or everything you're putting out there. Anyway,
right.
thank you so much, Mickey. But that's where we're at. That's what we're doing. And we will talk to you later. All right, now I'm going
Okie
to set up,
dokie. Thank you.
close off the YouTube. Oh, look.